Hello there, it's Mr. Stonall from Denby High School. In this video, I'm just going to show you what a typical learning experience in psychology is for our Year 9 students. So what I'm going to show you is the second lesson in a sequence of lessons all about Eysenk's criminal personality theory, which they have been learning since the start of lockdown. So the last lesson, they had an overview of some key ideas behind Eysenk's theory. This lesson is going to build upon their knowledge, zero in on extroversion, one particular aspect of Eysenk's theory. Now, in this typical remote learning experience, they are first of all getting some material, which is a video about extroversion that I've created, which we'll have a look at shortly. I've also shared with them an assignment in the form of a Google quiz to test and assess how much they have learned from my video. So first of all, let's take a look at the video. Hello, psychology. Today is your second lesson about Eysenk's theory of the criminal personality. And this is Mr. Stonall to talk you through it. Now, the first thing you can do is look at this pen. And hopefully this pen will help you recall some key aspects of Eysenk's theory. So what I suggest you to do now is press pause, have a piece of paper, and just scribble down, write down as much as you can recall about this theory from memory. 2 minutes. Have a go. Right then, hopefully from the pen, you perhaps at least remember the 3 traits that Eysenck himself identified, the characteristics of psychoticism, extroversion, and neuroticism, that he said if you had high levels of these, you were more likely to become a criminal. Now, some other key aspects that hopefully you recalled about Eysenck's theory is that his theory is based on nature. So he argued that these personality traits are something that we are born with. They are part of who we are. They're biologically based, and they're based in our central nervous system, which is our brain and our spinal cords, and the way that they are made up. So we must know that Eysenck's theory is in opposition to Bandura's social learning theory. Now, Bandura's theory said we learn behaviors, we can learn to be more criminal. Eysenck says, no, we are born with particular traits that mean we are more likely to be a criminal. Those traits being psychoticism, extroversion, and neuroticism. Now, in today's lesson, we're going to zero in on one of these traits. In the next 3 lessons, we'll look at one of these traits each at a time. The first one we're going to look at is extroversion. And what we're going to look at extroversion is, what it is again, but how it links to our central nervous system, and this is, all to do with neuropsychology, how our brains and the way our brains work link to our behaviors. Now, to understand this, obviously we need to know a basic bit of information about our central nervous systems and some neuropsychology. So this is going to be a really, really simple explanation that hopefully once I've explained, you're going to perhaps watch again, review again, and perhaps test yourself, particularly on some of these words that I'm going to introduce now, which relate to extroversion, which we'll see later. So first of all, a clear understanding of what the central nervous system is. Now, it is the brain and the... Right, so I hope you get a sense of what the videos are offering. I mean, in all the lessons, there's some review of previous learning. They get an opportunity to pause a video and do some recall tasks, which can appear in many different ways. You've also got a clear outline of the expectations of the learning in that lesson, followed by a teacher explanation. And in that explanation, lots of opportunities to perhaps say, pause the video, rewatch certain parts of that video so that you clarify your understanding. And there are other activities that are included. Now, obviously, all those activities may be completed on pen and paper, something that I may not assess. On some occasions, I know teachers who have Google documents attached to these tasks where they can take notes from videos if they require them to. Anyway, for me, it will be all assessed in the Google form. So after watching that video, which is 10 minutes long, maybe talk about perhaps 15, 20 minutes if they review parts of that video, they will go on to the Google quiz assignment. So if we take a look at this assignment, you'll be able to see it has some multiple choice questions, and it also has some written questions in here. So the self-marked questions are multiple choice. I will have to mark the written questions. So I've got some short ones and one long one at the end to be marked. So 11 marks, that will give me some kind of feedback and a reasonable idea of how well they're doing. So I can go into that Google form. I can look at some of the responses, and in their responses, I can then go into marks. So each individual student, I can go into see their particular work, and you can see answers self-marked. Some that aren't self-marked, I've gone in, I can just change to mark up and down using those tabs. I can give individual feedback for particular questions. You can, it must be noted, predetermine this feedback. So you could give exemplar answers here that they will see when you release the mark to them. So feedback given, work marked. When you do all that marking, you can see a summary of their learning as well. So you can see overall as a class how people are doing, and you can also look at individual questions and how well they're performing at individual questions to give you an overview of that class. Excellent. So that work gets put back into the Google Classroom, and on the Google Classroom, I can go on to give whole class feedback if I wished. I can do it verbally through Remote, or I can write it. And for each individual student, I can go to the aspect of their task and type some feedback and give some Remote feedback if I require. So that's an example of a typical learning experience in psychology. The next lesson, it would be very similar to the last lesson. Recap, video, new knowledge, assignment, feedback, with the long view of perhaps building up to more extended written answers on this particular sequence of learning. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful day.